Soviet nuclear doctrine and posture evolved fundamentally in response to that of the United States. So throughout the 1950s, the Soviets were trying to build up a capability to potentially retaliate if the United States were to attack it with nuclear weapons. A lot of this culminates in the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviets had not built up a large intercontinental arsenal, so they moved shorter range missiles to the Western Hemisphere. Of course, this results in the Cuban Missile Crisis, probably the closest humanity's ever come to an actual nuclear war. So the Soviets sort of go back to the drawing board, and they really start to build up a very capable intercontinental nuclear arsenal. In terms of doctrine, the Soviets were much less, for much of the Cold War, were much less convinced than the United States about the possibility of limiting nuclear war. They were not, no one had any evidence about whether nuclear war could be controlled, but the Soviet experience tended to suggest it couldn't. And the Soviets in particular were, I would say, almost obsessed with surprise attack. Of course, the World War II experience, what they call the Great Patriotic War, was seared into their memories. I mean, all the Soviet leadership for the Cold War were essentially World War II veterans, except towards the very end with some of that younger leadership. So they had seen what German surprise attack in Operation Barbarossa had done. It had cost ultimately, something on the order of 20 million Soviet lives, but that had taken years. Imagine if there was a surprise attack of that scale with nuclear weapons. It could cause the same level of damage in minutes. So the Soviets were very much concerned about that possibility and of not being coerced, of not being bullied by the United States. At the same time, they realized, particularly as the Cold War went on, they just did not have the resources the United States had. The United States economy, though it went through its own troubles in the 1970s, just began to outstrip the Soviets. Their technology was enormously capable from the Soviet perspective. So that was the other real driver of Soviet nuclear posture, was how do we deal with this technologically advanced adversary that just continues to develop more capability.